Maya sat at the corner table of the upscale restaurant, her palms pressed flat against her lap to keep them from trembling. The linen tablecloth was crisp, the soft golden lighting cast warm glows across the room, and every table around her buzzed with laughter and clinking glasses. She had never been to a place like this before. Usually, she stuck to small café-copyrights or casual diners, where she felt less like all eyes might fall on her at once. But tonight was different. Tonight, she was on a blind date. Her best friend, Alina, had pushed her into it. Maya, you deserve someone who sees you, someone who looks beyond everything you're so insecure about. He's a good guy, I promise. Give it a chance. Maya had smiled weakly and agreed, though deep down, she feared the same old story would play out again. Rejection. Still, she'd bought a new red dress for tonight, one that hugged her curves in a way she wasn't sure she was brave enough for. She had paired it with modest heels, curled her hair, and swiped on her boldest lipstick. For once, she wanted to feel like the heroine in her own story and not the side character who was overlooked. She glanced at her phone. He was late. Her reflection on the screen stared back at her, round face, soft double chin, big brown eyes filled with nervous anticipation. She gave herself a quiet pep talk in her mind. You are more than your body. You are kind. You are intelligent. You are worthy. The waiter approached with a polite smile. Would you like to order a drink while you wait? Just water for now, she replied, forcing a smile. Minutes ticked by like hours. She tried to distract herself by looking at the menu, though the fancy dishes were a blur of names she didn't recognize. When the door finally opened, she spotted a tall man in a pressed navy suit walking in. He carried himself with casual confidence, his hair styled neatly, his shoes gleaming. Maya's heart skipped up. This had to be him. She sat up straighter, her hands gripping the edges of the tablecloth. He approached, scanned the room, and then his gaze landed on her. For a fleeting second, there was a polite smile on his lips, but then it faded. His eyes traveled from her face to her figure, and Maya felt the shift of the disappointment, the silent judgment. He walked over, pulled out the chair opposite her, and sat down with a sigh. Maya, yes, she said softly, her throat suddenly dry. It's nice to meet you, Daniel. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he glanced at his phone, frowned, and then leaned back in his chair. After a long pause, he muttered, You didn't tell me she was a broken bar this size. His voice sharp and cutting as he spoke into the phone. The words struck her like a slap. Her breath caught, her heart stuttered, and she blinked quickly, hoping she'd misheard. But the look on his face told her otherwise. He ended the call and leaned closer, lowering his voice slightly but not enough to soften the blow. Look, I'm sorry. You seem nice, but a broken bar this isn't going to work. You're not my type. I can't do this. Her lips parted, but no words came out. She wanted to defend herself, to shout that she was worth so much more than the number on a scale, but her voice was gone. Before she could gather herself, he was already standing. He gave her a quick, apologetic shrug, as though she were nothing more than a mild inconvenience in his evening, and walked out without a backward glance. Maya sat frozen, her cheeks burning hotter than the candle flickering between them. Around her, the restaurant continued as if nothing had happened. Couples laughing, waiters serving, glasses clinking. But for her, the world had shrunk into a small, suffocating bubble of shame. Her eyes stung, but she refused to let the tears fall. Not here, not in front of strangers. She lifted her glass of water and took a sip, her hand trembling. Don't cry. Don't let him win. You knew this could happen. You'll be fine. Still, her chest ached. She had been rejected before, but something about the cruelty of his words or the way he had dismissed her without even trying to cut deeper than usual. She picked up the menu again, pretending to read though her vision was blurred. She wanted to look busy, occupied, invisible. She wanted the earth to open and swallow her whole. And then she felt it, a gaze. She looked up, and at the next table, a man was watching her, not with pity, not with mockery, but with a steady, curious interest. He sat alone, his posture relaxed, his tailored suit fitting him perfectly. His hair was dark, swept back effortlessly, and there was something about him that radiated quiet authority. People around him seemed to know this, too. The waiters moved quickly to serve him. Other diners stole glances his way. He wasn't just anyone. He had presence. Maya's first instinct was embarrassment. Great. Even strangers saw what just happened. She quickly looked back at the menu, her face heating again. But when she dared to glance up a second time, his eyes were still on her. And then he smiled. Not a mocking smile. Not the kind that said, "Poor girl." No. It was something different. Warm. Even amused. Like he was impressed by the way she held herself despite what had just happened. Maya blinked, unsure of how to react. The man leaned forward slightly, resting his forearms on his table, and in a low, steady voice that carried across the small space between them, he said the words that would change everything. "Do you know what I think is beautiful?" Maya froze, unsure if she had heard correctly. The words seemed unreal, almost like a balm to the raw embarrassment she still felt. The stranger across the table wasn't approaching, he wasn't intruding. He was simply a broken bar speaking to her. "I mean it," he continued, his voice calm but carrying a weight that made her sit up straighter. "Most people think beauty is skin deep, that it's measured by numbers, by curves, or by some arbitrary standard. But real beauty is courage. It's resilience. It's the way you're sitting there, carrying yourself even after someone just hurt you." Maya blinked, heart pounding, as warmth slowly replaced the sting of humiliation. She wanted to speak, to respond, but her throat was tight. Instead, she nodded slightly, unsure of how else to react. He smiled again, softer this time, and added, "You've got more courage than most people I know, and that's beautiful." The words wrapped around her like a protective blanket, shielding her from the sting of earlier rejection. She felt the tension in her shoulders ease, just a little, and a strange sense of calm began to settle over her. "Yeah, I don't even know your name," she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. "Ethan," he replied, extending a hand. His presence wasn't overwhelming, it was commanding, yet comforting. "Ethan Cole, CEO of Cole Enterprises." Maya's eyes widened. "A CEO?" She quickly tried to mask her surprise, lowering her gaze, but he chuckled, as if reading her mind. "Don't look so shocked," he said. "Titles mean very little in moments like this. What matters is character. And you, Maya, have character in spades." Her pulse raced. Something about the way he spoke, he is so genuine, so sincere, he made it impossible for her to retreat into self-doubt. For the first time in years, she felt seen, really seen. Ethan leaned back, studying her thoughtfully. "Tell me something," he said, his tone shifting from gentle to curious. "What made you agree to this blind date tonight?" Maya swallowed. "Yeah, I guess I wanted to prove to myself that I could put myself out there, even thought a broken bar, even though I know people might judge me for my size." Her voice wavered, and she paused, suddenly feeling the weight of her vulnerability. "And," Ethan prompted softly, "and a broken bar, it didn't go well," she admitted, forcing a small laugh to mask the sting. Broken bar," he just said. "I wasn't his type," and walked out, like I wasn't even worth a conversation. Ethan added slowly, as if he already knew the story, "I see." He paused for a moment, then leaned forward slightly, his elbows resting lightly on the table. "Maya, can I tell you something?" She nodded, hesitant. "People like that," he said, gesturing vaguely toward the empty space where her blind date had been. "They measure worth in the wrong ways. They see you through a lens clouded by shallow standards. But the world doesn't revolve around them. It revolves around people like you, people who have heart, who have courage, who are willing to face rejection and still keep going. That's rare. And that's powerful." Maya felt tears prick her eyes. She pressed her hands to her lap, trying to hide them, but Ethan's gaze softened, giving her permission to feel. "Most people," he continued, "spend their lives trying to shrink themselves to fit someone else's idea of perfection. But you, a broken bar, you're not shrinking, you're showing up, and that's something worth celebrating." For the first time, Maya smiled genuinely, the weight of shame lifting slightly from her chest. She looked at Ethan, studying his calm, confident presence, and realized that she felt a broken bar safe to just be herself, safe to breathe. Ethan reached into his suit pocket and pulled out a small notebook, scribbling a few words on a page before tearing it out and sliding it toward her. She picked it up, curious, written in neat handwriting were 3 words. You are enough. Her hands shook slightly as she read them. She had heard those words before, in therapy sessions, and self-help books, and whispered reassurances from friends. But these are coming from a stranger, a man of stature, someone whose opinion could have carried judgment but didn't. It struck a chord deep in her heart. You a broken bar really mean that? She asked, her voice barely audible. I do, he said simply, with a nod. I've met a lot of people who are successful in their careers, their social lives, even in their love lives, but very few who are successful at being truly themselves. You a broken bar are successful at that, and that's more impressive than anything else you could ever achieve. For the first time in years, Maya felt a spark of self-worth that wasn't tied to a number on a scale or the approval of others. She realized that the rejection she had endured wasn't a reflection of her value, it was merely the shallow lens of someone else's limited perception. They talked for hours, about life, dreams, fears, and small joys. Ethan asked questions that made her think deeply, listened with a patience she had never experienced, and shared insights that felt profound without being condescending. Maya laughed more freely than she had in months, the sound bubbling from her like a hidden stream finally breaking through. At some point, the restaurant staff began quietly preparing for closing, but neither of them noticed. They were lost in conversation, 2 strangers connecting in a way that defied expectations. As the night drew to an end, Ethan stood and offered her his hand. Maya took it, feeling a strange mix of exhilaration and grounding comfort. You should know, he said, smiling warmly. This isn't about a date anymore. It's about perspective. You've reminded me tonight that courage is beautiful, that authenticity is rare, that self-worth isn't something someone else gives us, it's something you claim for yourself. Maya felt a lump in her throat. Thank you, she whispered, for a broken bar everything, for seeing me. Ethan gave a small nod. Just remember this, he said as they walked toward the door. You don't need anyone to validate you. The world is better when you show up as yourself, and anyone who can't see that, they're not worth your energy. Outside, the cool night air wrapped around them, the city lights reflected in the wet pavement, and Maya felt lighter than she had in years. She realized that tonight hadn't just been about rejection. It had been about awakening at the start of a journey toward self-acceptance, courage, and new possibilities. Ethan paused, looking at her with an intensity that made her heart skip. One more thing, he said softly, don't let anyone ever make you feel less than the incredible person you are. Not your date, not me, not anyone. Your worth isn't negotiable. Maya's lips curved into a smile that was steady, genuine, unshakable. For the first time in a long while, she felt seen, understood, and enough. As they parted that night, Maya realized something profound. Sometimes, rejection isn't the end of the story, it's the door opening to something far greater. And with courage, authenticity, and a little kindness from the right person at the right time, even the most painful moments can transform into beginnings she never dared imagine. She walked home with her head held high, heart lighter, and a renewed sense of self. For the first time, she believed not just in others but in herself.